Cool. Hello everyone and welcome back to Science Class. My name is Elio and this is The Florist, where I sit on the floor and we talk about science. In today's episode, we'll be talking about Should You Meet Your Heroes? Charles Darwin edition. So sit down and get ready to take some notes. There will be a pop quiz at the end of this video. No, there actually won't, but you should pay attention anyways. So let's get into it. Darwin was born in 1809 in Shrewsbury, England, which is a small town that probably wasn't expecting to produce the scientist who would later go on to devastate creationism. Darwin was not, contrary to popular belief, a child prodigy and actually preferred wandering outside and collecting beetles to doing his schoolwork, which we've all been there, I guess. He briefly tried studying medicine and hated it, and this is a direct quote from Wikipedia. Quote, "Darwin found lectures dull and surgery distressing, so he neglected his studies." This, of course, pissed off his dad, who sent him to Christ's College to study to be an Anglican country parson, of all things. At Christ's College, he got to hang out with his cousin, who not only showed him his sick butterfly collection, but also got him into collecting beetles again, and introduced him to a bunch of really cool science professors. One being the botanist John Stevens Henslow, which Darwin had a big fat science crush on, which we've all been there. So he kept doing science until eventually he went back to Shrewsbury, his hometown. Then, enter the boat. After returning home, he received a letter from Henslow, his science crush, recommending him to be a naturalist on a self-funded expedition captained by Robert Fitzroy. So basically, at age 22, Darwin hopped on a surveying ship called the HMS Beagle and spent 5 years sailing around the world collecting fossils, plants, and animals. Small boat, big consequences. We've all been there. Probably the most famous stop was the Galapagos Islands, where Darwin noticed something kind of weird. Similar animals would look different on different islands, like finches with different beak shapes or tortoises with different shell shapes. After returning home with his extensive collection of dead birds, we've all been there, he talked to ornithologist John Gould. Gould told him that the birds he collected from the Galapagos were not a collection of blackbirds, finches, and grosbeaks like he originally thought, but instead were 12 different species of finches, which really got him thinking, what if species change over time? I know for us this seems kind of obvious, but this was a really big deal for Darwin, so. The idea that species changed was absolutely bonkers bananas, especially for the 1830s, where most Europeans believed that all animals were created exactly as they are by God. Darwin thought otherwise, but he sat on this theory for no less than 20 years because he knew it would be controversial and he didn't want Victorian England to clutch its pearls at him. So if you ever feel bad for procrastinating, at least you didn't procrastinate the thesis of your life for 20 years. Or maybe you have. We've all been there. Then the worst thing ever happened. In 1858, Darwin received a letter from naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace, who had independently come up with the exact same idea. So imagine procrastinating your theory for 20 years, and then some guy writes you and is like, oh yeah, by the way, I solved biology. So Darwin writes back and he's like, yeah, that's cool. But he's absolutely crashing out. So thanks to the big AR dubs, Alfred Russel Wallace, Darwin finally published On the Origin of Species in 1859, and in it he argued 4 very important points. Number 1, individuals vary. Number 2, some variations help survival. Number 3, those individuals reproduce more. And number 4, over generations, helpful traits are spread. And then bang, natural selection. No magic, no sudden transformations, no God, and just slow cumulative change over deep time. The reception of this idea was mixed, to say the least, and there was actually crazy drama in the science community. In fact, one of Darwin's protégés, Thomas Huxley, once got into an argument during a debate with this other guy, Samuel Wilberforce, who taunted him about his ape ancestry, basically calling him stupid for believing in evolution. And Huxley responded with this absolute banger of a quote. If then the question is put to me whether I would rather have a miserable ape for a grandfather or a man highly endowed by nature and possessed of great means of influence and yet employs these faculties of influence for the purpose of introducing ridicule into a grave scientific discussion, I unhesitatingly affirm my preference for the ape. Damn. Anyways, it was very controversial, and a lot of his science crushes of the past, like John Henslow, totally dismissed the idea, which for some reason makes me really sad. But Darwin spent the rest of his life being ill, writing books, and doing experiments on earthworms. It's true, you can look it up. He died in 1882 and was buried in Westminster Abbey, which is sort of like the science equivalent of being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Okay, so what did we learn? Darwin didn't really discover evolution. People had suggested species change before, but what he did that was so important was explain how it happened, which is little by little over the course of thousands of years. And once we understood natural selection, we started seeing it everywhere, like in dog breeds or crop plants or later antibiotic resistance, viruses, literally all of life. In conclusion, I would meet him. I give him a solid 5, maybe 5.5 out of 10. He was allegedly fine. He was anti-slavery, but he was still racist, so the bar is literally in hell. But he did fundamentally change the way that we think about biology. He did screw over Alfred Russel Wallace, which was rude, and despite all of his thoughts on evolution, he did still marry his cousin, Emma Wedgwood. So this is probably going to be the first long-form science content I post on my YouTube channel. If you like this type of thing, let me know, and let me know who you want me to do the next Should You Meet Your Heroes on. I have a few more scientists lined up, but I'm always looking for suggestions. Yeah, my name is Elio, this is The Florist, and thank you for coming to science class. I hope you have a wonderful day. Darwin finally publishes On the Origins of Species. Origin. Just one. And was buried in Westminster Abbey, which is like the science equivalent of being abducted. And he died in 1882 and was buried at oh my pleek. Darwin didn't really discover Darwin. Oh my god. Darwin didn't really Darwin. Oh my god.